Evil is evil, the degree is arbitrary, the definition's blurred. If I'm to choose between one evil and another, I'd rather not choose at all. I don't think anyone here would expect that one of the greatest sayings about the world and its tragic truth actually came from a role playing game. The Witcher 3 is a fantasy role playing game that has captured the hearts of millions not only because of the story but also the way it's told. Today, I want to talk about my favorite game and what I love about it, and more importantly, about the power of choice highlighted throughout it. The Witcher 3 is the story of Geralt, a monster hunter in search of his ward Ciri across a war-ridden land full of fantasy creatures. While the premise is simple, there's a much bigger iceberg that you get to discover along the way. The best part is that the game allows you to experience this story without shoving it down your throat. Its narrative style is such that you get to control the pacing. The main quests have no time limit, so you're free to take your time with them and explore the vast open world yourself, where there's an abundance of activities and side quests. These side quests do more than just give you experience and bonus items. They give the players the opportunity to immerse themselves further into the world of The Witcher. You get to interact with the locals and the setting. You get to experience what war is like for rich people, for poor people, for people who fight in the war, and for people caught in between them. This experience isn't exclusive to side quests. You still experience them in the main quests, but the difference here is that the game doesn't have to worry about mixing the main storyline into them. Luke Stephens, a YouTuber who reviewed the game, notes that allowing the player to discover things this way makes it organic and that much more interesting. I couldn't agree more. One memorable quest for me is about finding a villager's lost brother who fought in a war. I had to fight through a horde of monsters while looking at several main bodies. Eventually, I found the brother in a shack with an enemy who had saved him, but in doing so turned blind. I was given the choice to have the brother decide whether or not to let the enemy live or take care of him. There's another mission where you have to track down a murderer, but eventually find out it was a succubus who did it only to protect herself from an abuser. These are just some of the quests where you get to experience the effect of war and how the world isn't all black and white. These side quests are not everyone's favorites though. Vince Ingenito of IGN writes that they're only there to pad the time and bother the players. Despite this, he still agrees that they are a great way to immerse yourself in the culture and the people. Of course, a world has no story without the characters who make them. The game managed to create characters that do more than just support the protagonists. They're able to stand out on their own, and sometimes, like with Ciri, we even get to play out their character to experience their part of the story. When playing Ciri, I didn't feel like I was playing just any character. To me, it felt like I was experiencing the story from another perspective. The storytelling was only ever enhanced. Other characters that we get to meet but not necessarily play are still just as good. There's Yennefer and Triss, who are two of Geralt's love interests. Eventually, you have to choose between who you love, but they have their own missions. Triss wants to help liberate other magical creatures from slavery and racism, while Yennefer wants power even at the cost of pushing away people. We can also talk about Vesemir, the father figure for Geralt, who accompanies us on our first few missions. Immediately, we know that we are close to him and that we have a deep relationship together. This makes them feel three-dimensional and not just characters in a game. A game isn't just about these things though. It's also about environmental storytelling. This includes the music, the voice acting, the sound effects, and the like. The graphics of the game are still beautiful. Even if it was released back in 2015, countless reviews, like Gandalf the Gamer's article on Loot and Grind, still praise the game for its stunning graphics. The original scores, music, and even voice acting made for the game have created the appropriate atmosphere and rarely dilute a specific moment for the player. NPCs in different villages also have their own unique dialogue, which makes the overall experience so much more enjoyable. Even the background music is interactive. For example, music when in combat is more upbeat, while music when you're exploring is more calming and peaceful. These tiny things aren't the main point of the game, but they go a long way in enhancing it. All the things I've been talking about so far are things you can find in other games. I want to be more specific about The Witcher 3, which is why I'll talk about it as a role playing game, or RPG, next. RPGs are generally built on three concepts: how much role playing there is, the choices we make, and how much these choices affect the world. Other games, such as Skyrim, have a wider range of choices you can make. In terms of role playing, you actually get to choose your race, sex, age, and even your facial features. In contrast, almost everything has been decided about Geralt. The only thing you can change is his hairstyle and beard. But I think role playing isn't just about that. In The Witcher 3, you are put in Geralt's shoes. The choices you make influence his life and his world. This is still role playing, and even if you can't customize your character, it doesn't take away anything from the gaming experience. Secondly, and more importantly, is the choices we make. There are tons of other RPGs that are similar to The Witcher 3, not just Skyrim, Life is Strange, The Walking Dead, the list can go on. These games put you in a position where you have to make a choice that could affect the world. Whether it's the groups you join, people you want to survive with, or even how you use your powers, choices have a visible impact on the world of the game. The Witcher 3 is no exception, but with a twist. In some games, you get to choose between what is evil and what is good. In this world, you're only ever choosing between two evils, and it's up to you to choose which is the lesser one. In one of the main quests, you're given the choice to kill this tree spirit or to let it free. Your choice would mean either an entire village would be sentenced to death, or you'd let them live, but continue to live under tyranny. Oh, and some children get eaten, but that's a story you should explore yourself. Even saving Ciri could mean the end of a kingdom's reign, or her happiness. The choices won't always be this consequential, but you would always find yourself in conflict because of how this could end up affecting things. This leads me to talk about the most important aspect of The Witcher 3: how our choices affect the world. What attracted me to the game was the dedication of the developers to details. You could see how much effort they put in illustrating the impact of your decisions. When I played one of the missions, I caught a woman who was plotting to overthrow the king of a land. When caught, the punishment given to her was that she would be tied to a rock and feasted on by birds. Most games would end at that, but while exploring the map, at the very tip of an island, I found that very same woman tied to the rock. It's not as if the game was proactively pushing me to discover it. There weren't any major quests there either. There was another side quest at the beginning of the game where I rescued a woman from dying. I eventually forgot about it, but while exploring a small village, a guard walked up to me and thanked me for saving his lover. It turns out that it was the woman I had saved back then. I didn't pass by that village until I was well past the halfway point of the game, but I thought it was such a nice touch. This has also helped contribute to the replayability of the game. Because there are so many choices that could change so many things, players, including me, would go back to this game over and over. Several other gamers wanted to test the limit, to see how far this could go, and one of them, by the name of X Letalis, spent over 6 years testing out the things that would change when he did quests out of order. He discovered that these changes affected not only the dialogue of the quests, but even all the way at the end of the game. In a way, this makes it feel realistic because it plays out like how it would in real life. Even the tiniest things can change how things play out. This makes the game feel organic, and in the words of Stephen, it's something that isn't necessary, but that's what makes it so impressive and so great. The fact that it wasn't required, but they still went the extra mile to deliver it. I realize that people have different preferences for games. I have always been in love with narrative games. There could be people out there who are more into first-person shooters and the like, but that doesn't mean it would be a bad experience for them to play this game. It's more than just the fantasy side of the world. It also handles real-life ethical and moral dilemmas that Geralt faces, concepts that I think everyone would appreciate. I'm sure that anyone would enjoy the game as much as I'm sure the developers put effort into making it. I started playing The Witcher 3 3 years ago, and I'm still just as bewitched by it as I was back then. After 7 years and over 800 awards won since its release date, it continues to stand against the test of time. I suggest you play it and experience why evil is evil and the degree is arbitrary.